little bit through this journey and how, innovation has really been the theme here and why.
Oh, well, first let me say it's great to be back here in Birmingham. I first started coming here in 2016 as part of Venture for America. And
wait, raise some hands. How many VFA folks are here?
Oh yeah, I love it. And I tell anyone who asks me, I say Birmingham is awesome, that the people there are wonderful, there are incredible companies solving real problems, and that they should check it out if they haven't been. And the folks who know Birmingham say to me, it's like, yeah, it's exceptional and it's something of a best kept secret. But I'm going to do my best, frankly, to not keep it a secret and let the rest of the country know that this is an awesome place to build something.
Finger snaps. Let's get some love for that one. Yes.
That changes many, many lives.
Absolutely. And so VFA, and for those of you who don't know, Venture for America, maybe you can talk a little bit about that and why you felt it was important to even create a platform like Venture for America that has been running for how long now?
12 years now. I think it's been about a dozen years. But I do want to rewind because when someone says they're an entrepreneur, it glosses over so much. I did leave a law firm job, and my parents were not very pleased. They are Asian, they're all. And that first company I started did not work out. I had a mini rise and maximum fall. And then after that, I did a few scrappy jobs. I was a nightclub promoter in New York for a while. And for people who want to become an entrepreneur, by the way, that's really above average training. Right. Andrew Yang recommends throwing parties in nightclubs. So worked for another company that also ran out of money, worked for another company. And so it was about 10 years between leaving the law firm job and my having some measure of entrepreneurial success when my parents started talking to me again. Just kidding. So that grind period, we tend to gloss over. And when you're in the grind, by the way, you can't really be honest about the grind to a lot of people. Because what happens when they come to you and say, hey, how's the company going? What do you have to say?
Amazing.
Great.
Everything's going up.
Every company
Invest.
is doing great if you talk to anyone associated with that company. Meanwhile, things were not that great. On a personal level, I had already had one or two companies fail. I had a net worth of negative 100,000 because law school debt doesn't just evaporate if you decide to become an entrepreneur. I used to call my law school loans my mistress because it was like I was supporting a family in another town. It's like hope they're having a good life.
It's a big relationship.
There were some real trials and tribulations, some ups and downs, and I know that I was very fortunate that I was able to assume those kinds of risks and come out the other side, but it took at least a decade.
Yeah, I had the privilege of working with many VFA alums, and so these young people go into startups or they start their own businesses a lot of times, which is amazing. Even I'm not sure if y'all have heard of Sierra May out of St. Louis, who was a VFA, I think between Birmingham as well as Charlotte, who's been building like a biodegradable hair business, which is like insane. And so when we think about this idea of, innovation isn't just about creating things, there's also this platform of providing opportunity to others. So I'd love to get your thoughts on just even the significance of ensuring that we can generate a new generation of business builders and the investment that's required for that.
It's why I started Venture for America in 2011. So my company got acquired in 2009, and I felt very flush. I was 34 years old and thought, okay, what are the problems I'd like to solve? And one of the biggest problems was that we didn't have enough young people going to build businesses and solving real problems in places like Birmingham. And my joke at the time, but this is pretty accurate, I said, if you're a young person who's kind of directionless and you don't know what to do, and you decide to go to law school, your parents will say it's a great idea, it's easy to find, and the government will give you a $100,000 loan, no questions asked. If you decide to start a company, your parents will think it's a terrible idea, it's very hard to find, and no one will give you a $100,000 loan. So no mystery that we have tens of thousands of surplus, unhappy, indebted law school graduates and a deficit of scrappy, awesome entrepreneurs. So I started Venture for America to change that. I donated $120,000 of my own to seed the organization, went without salary, came to places around the country saying, hey, like, wouldn't it be great if you had incredible, enterprising young people who wanted to build a business alongside you and then maybe would start their own business. And that was the best part of Venture for America, is seeing young people join and then having their ambitions become different than the ambitions of some of their peers, because they're around folks who are doing incredible things every day. And I think that's the sense of optimism and possibility that so much of the country needs more of. Certainly Venture for America was centered around young people, but I dare say that there are opportunities at every level.
So I've been following you on Twitter for years, and you just started following me today, which is fine. One of the things that you talk a lot about is this idea of a human-centered economy. And I love this language because it broadens us back to thinking about how we are functioning together. It's been a tough last few years. And talk to us a little bit about what we mean in this context of a human-centered economy, and also just like, what is our role in it? You know, as people who are a part of this ecosystem, who want to see our cities, our companies, our neighbors like do really well.
I'm so glad you raised this, Sherrell, because this is what animates me right now. 4 years ago, I ran around the country saying, hey, AI is going to come. It's going to wipe out a lot of jobs. And some people thought I was far out or ahead of my time. I was with young black mayor, Michael Tubbs, and we were on a panel together. And then afterwards, he said to me, Andrew, you can say shit I could never get away with. Because if the young black mayor says, let's give everyone money, they would laugh me out of the room. But if the magical Asian man from the future says we should give everyone money, people are like, oh, like this guy has some very interesting ideas. My friends are working on AI. It's gotten here faster than even I thought. It's going to eat away a lot of jobs. It is, you know, and some of the people here in this room are going to be in a position to benefit from it. There are a lot of people who are not in this room who will just have their lives changed in ways that I'm going to suggest are not wholly positive. And so I thought, well, let's try and speed us up. And what does that acceleration look like? Number one, it's addressing gross poverty. And poverty really is 100% addressable by the numbers. So right now, our economy might be, our economy adds up to something like $78,000 a person right now. I'm going to suggest that at $78,000 a head, you could probably address poverty. I was making a case, let's just give everyone a floor of $12,000, and that'd do a whole lot of good. By the way, there'd be a lot more entrepreneurship, there'd be more young people taking risks.
Absolutely.
You'd be able to push things in a direction, but I'm going to say to you all, even though that seems ambitious, that's just a foundational layer, because if you have the freedom to do what you want, what do we pursue? And the major headwind against us is that the economy is going to reward certain behaviors and not reward others. And a lot of the things they're not going to reward are things we actually value deeply as humans. So I'm going to pitch to you all, what's something that right now the market doesn't care about, but we care about? Arts and creativity would be very high on that list, in my mind. Imagine like an arts and creativity economy where if you painted a mural or beautified a neighborhood or even played live music at a venue, then this arts and creativity currency came to you. Another one might be education and nurturing. And the example I used on the trail was that my wife is at home with our son who's autistic. What does the market value her time at? 0, and we know that's perverse, and we know that's actually an extraordinarily valuable use of our time. And then another, this will be fun for some of you, imagine like a health and fitness type currency. I mean, we pay to go to the gym, we should actually be getting paid to go to the gym at this rate. Oh, seriously. Like, it would be a net win. I mean, we're shoveling 18% of the economy into keeping us healthy, and like, it's not actually keeping us healthy. I mean, what's happening is we have this massive machine just extracting revenue from us in various ways. So the path to an economy we're excited about isn't just something like UBI or getting rid of poverty. It's building an arts and creativity economy, an education and nurturing economy, a health and fitness economy, and then maybe something else. And it's one reason why I have been supportive of the efforts in crypto, even though I will say that they've been very much not aligned with the things I just described. Like, they've been like primarily a financial speculation engine, which is not what you want. Like, you want these other things. But the fact that we actually are in position to create smart currencies that could reward and recognize values that might rejuvenate a local economy. Because one of the other headwinds is this Amazonification of the economy, where you have these trillion-dollar behemoths that are just going to be like, hey, you want to start that business? Sorry, we did that. Like, that business is not here for you anymore. You have this more and more extreme winner-take-all economy. And to me, the only way out is to invest in a reimagined, human-centered economy in a very deliberate way.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of really great and strong ideas. I think a lot from a practical level, like my grandfather is 91 from Birmingham, again, shout out. And I think about those who will never buy crypto, may not even ever understand it.
No, don't worry. I'm not saying that it needs to be on the blockchain. Like, the arts and creativity economy can be administered in a way that's totally understandable to anybody. And the comparison I make to folks is that punch card you have from your deli that if you get to 10, you get a free sandwich. I mean, it can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as Amex reward points for doing something that's positive in this dimension. And I get obsessed with those reward points. You know what I mean? Like, you actually will adapt behaviors. And one of the reasons why I think you need a different currency or a different scale is that if I tell you I have this much money, I'm a jerk, because you don't want to know. It's like, oh, this much money, you know, it's obnoxious. But if I say I have this much arts and creativity currency because I painted a mural or whatnot, then that's actually something I can share with you in a way that's not obnoxious. And you're like, oh, how'd you get that? You did this. And you can imagine an art gallery event where you need to have like that currency to gain admission, and then if you don't have that currency, you're like, oh, snap, how do I get it? It's like, well, I guess you have to buy it. Like, you can create an exchange for it. So I'm totally with you, don't worry about it. Like, I'm a very, very practical person who does not think you need to open a wallet to like go to the gallery. I mean, you have to make it as easy as possible.
But I think that's okay. I don't think you're practical at all, but I think that's okay. And I think that's why it's important.
In some ways I am highly impractical, it's true. My wife says that sometimes.
But it's very Black Mirror. I don't know if you all see that.
I'm still married, baby. Done all of this, I'm still married.
That's impressive. Yeah, shout out to Andrew's wife and kids. But it's a little Black Mirror, because I don't know if you saw that episode where they were giving points.
It was like my favorite episode of TV that year.
See, I was like, I know there's a little framework.
It's called Nosedive, Black Mirror. Yeah, check it out. It's really good.
But I want to go back to universal basic income, and I think for a lot of us who are maybe being introduced to this term for the very first time, and it was one of the things that you ran on during your candidacy in 2020, and talking about this idea of this kind of base layer of support. And there's been so many experimentations from Denver to Los Angeles. I believe you had a project in the Bronx providing $1,000 per month to low-income families. And it's even been piloted here. I believe Mayor Woodfin has a program, Embrace Mothers, that has provided some base-level support, and the outcomes have been positive. I mean, people are, not experiencing homelessness at the rate in which they would have had they not had that support, able to buy the food and the things that they need, and being able to even just use those resources as they need it. So when we talk about this idea of job replacement through technology, as well as just having a baseline, your basics covered, that's what kind of this universal basic income component is really shaping from a policy perspective, potentially, as we're talking about growing this idea of innovation and ensuring that people are creating the technologies that are ideally making our lives a little bit easier. But can you kind of just expand a little bit kind of on from a policy level, like how that would work? And just even like how are tech CEOs thinking about this?
Yeah, so when I was running for president, universal basic income was not a widely known concept. People thought it was like a UTI, a urinary tract infection.
Is that why you got so much flack for it? Like, we're not giving people STDs.
And we tested out a bunch of names. So it was Social Security for All, Universal Basic Income, Prosperity Dividend, and folks on the left liked it the same no matter what you called it. People on the right did not like it until it had the word freedom in it. So when we called it the freedom dividend, all of a sudden, like, the scores went up on that side. And so, like, all right, it's a freedom dividend. So it's like, hey, freedom dividend, $1,000 a month. And by the time I ended my campaign in 2020, approval had gone from 28% when I started to 65% at the end. And then during COVID, when we started issuing cash relief checks, which I lobbied for, then people were realizing it's like, oh, and this is one of the things that breaks my heart. Where when I was running for office, people were like, oh, how do you do that? How do you do that? And it's like, well, do you remember them asking how we get the $1 trillion to bail out Wall Street when they got into trouble? Like, you know,
somebody got
none
some
of
money
us voted for that.
somewhere.
Like, you know, when push comes to shove. Now, it turns out we printed $4 trillion during COVID, and the vast majority of that did not go to people and families. So 83% of it went to financial institutions, to corporates, some of it to city and state governments, which in my mind was like a fine move. About 15 to 17% went to ordinary people. And that was a big opportunity. Like, we could have done, if you look at $4 trillion, that's 12,000 a head. Like, we could have taken a very, very meaningful swing at poverty with those resources, but we did not. And one of the few things we did do that I was super pumped about was something called the Enhanced Child Tax Credit. I don't know if you all remember this. Maybe some of you had family members who benefited, but we cut child poverty from 11% to 5.5% in this country in 2021. And my team and I were there lobbying for that. And then American politics, in its infinite wisdom, decided to undo that change in 2022, and then child poverty went back to 11%. Mm-hmm. And I was heartbroken during that time, and I was waiting for some kind of response, and there was none, because it turns out if you're working poor in this country and we shove you back into poverty, you don't know to protest or go to your member Congress. It was just like not a peep. And so that's something that I'm still grinding away on. I've spent about $10 million of Jack Dorsey's money, no relation.
As we know of. We know the relation.
On a lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. that was based on an Onion article I read 12 years ago. And the Onion article said, the American people hire lobbyists on Capitol Hill, and then there's a guy in a suit saying, now they'll take us seriously. And I thought that was hysterically funny, but I was also like, well, we totally should do that. And so in 2020, I then started paying lobbyists in DC to go into members' office and be like, you know what people don't like? Poor kids. You should do something about that. And then the members literally look at my team and are like, who the hell do you lobby for? This is true. This is happening. And so they managed to get a partial revival of the Enhanced Child Tax Credit out of this House of Representatives. Like, this messed up House passed a partial revival of the Enhanced Child Tax Credit about 4 months ago, and it got stuck in the Senate. But it could come out because, I will say this, like, there was a senator who said we don't want to give the president a win at an election year. So we're still agitating for it. Yeah. So I'm highly impractical, to your point, Sherrell, but I'm also deeply practical. You know, like, the practical thing to do is pay some lobbyists, and so that's what I've been doing.
To stand in suits and go harass people on the Hill.
Yes, and then show them data saying, like, hey, if you reduce child poverty, people will like you more.
Yes, absolutely. We hate kids in poverty around here. So many things. What do we need to be doing to see a level of, we want to see progress. We want our economy to thrive. We want our businesses to thrive. We want to be able to have the space to not just innovate, but for that innovation to take root, to create more jobs, to be able to see what all of these late nights, early mornings, you know, we want to see that to be able to materialize. So raise your hand if you are an entrepreneur, you're actively building a business. I don't care if it's part-time, full-time, amazing. Raise your hand if you are an investor. I just want to get a gauge of the room here. Okay. Amazing. What are the rest of you people doing here? What? You guys just kind of stumbled in off the street like Andrew Yang is bringing. What was the shout out? The workforce. Yes, the teams. Amazing. Yes. So what should we be doing as a collective to see some change here? Because it just feels really tough. I mean, being at Sloss Tech, being in environments like this where you get the love, you get the support, but also knowing that there are still lots of hills, lots of boulders to push up hills, and lots of challenging policies as well that kind of make it preventative to see growth in some aspects. What should we be doing? How should we be thinking? How should we even be building in such a kind of interesting, weird, tumultuous space?
My phone has been blowing up since last night because of. So I want to say that very, very big picture. I was in California recently, and they asked me to forecast various things. I do think the headwinds are very significant, and they've been building up for a long time. Where there's a guy named Peter Turchin who's a social scientist, and he tried to model out how America's doing. And according to his model, we've been on a long-term path to disintegration for about 40 years, based around things like disparities in income, but also basic things like average height, visits to national monuments, faith in institutions. And so they asked me, it's like, hey, like I've been trying to help us avoid precipitous decline and kind of come back up, start elevating. But I think that we're probably in for a very, very dark period as a country. Now, you can't let that inform your day-to-day actions and behaviors. And so when you ask what can we do, the main thing we have to do is we have to see to it that our companies succeed, our organizations succeed, our people succeed, our families succeed. We have to take care of ourselves and our people first and foremost. And you can define that however you'd like. I'm in a fortunate position where I can take some swings at things that are policy oriented, and I fight for them. I fight hard, but I've had success in my life to a point where these things are not going to threaten my ability to put a roof over my family's head or anything like that. But a lot of folks, and including me, not that many years ago or whatnot, the main thing, you just have to kick ass at what you're doing here and now, and even in this greater context, recognizing it, but do not let it affect you. Do not let it creep into you. We need awesome people building great companies if we're going to get out of this, and I'm in this for the long haul. I hope you all are too.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I couldn't help but notice the pin on your lapel and this idea of forward, which I just signed up for the newsletter. Yes, and that's why I got the follow back on Twitter, I assume. Can you talk about this new initiative in Humanity Forward?
So I sit before you, the co-chair of the third biggest political party in the country by resources. There's just a very, very steep drop off between number 2 and number 3. But hey, it's sort of a familiar place to be. I spoke at TED a few months ago about something I came to in 2020, where I come off the trail, overachieved by most measures, campaign, and thank you to everyone who contributed, but raised tens of millions of dollars, got UBI from 28% to 65%. And I still felt despondent about the direction of the country. I was like, oh, why do I feel like we're still careening towards disaster? And what I realized was that our current political system is not designed for us to solve the biggest problems of this time. our political system right now is designed to play you lose, I lose, while most of our problems get worse, honestly. And so I thought, oh, okay, well, how the heck do you get out of that? And so if you want, you can see my TED Talk for a concrete way to get out of that by changing the incentives at the state level. But I realized you couldn't do it from within the two-party system. So I said, look, we need an independent, positive political movement. It's not left or right, it's forward. And I remember typing the words into this manuscript, because I wrote a book. And I was like, oh my God, am I signing up for like a decade plus just by writing these words? And I was like, yeah, I guess I am. I guess that's the way it's going. So I wrote the words, sent it in, I was like, all right. And knowing that as soon as that book hit the presses, it's like I should get to work. So that is what Forward is. The fun thing is we get to support good people doing good things with no regard for what letter happens to be next to their name.
Yeah, and where can people sign up to just learn more?
I would urge you to go check out the TED Talk because it breaks it down, I think, in some detail. But you go to forwardparty.com, just click on it, and if you don't like it, you can just unsubscribe. But like, our goal is to make good things happen within the worst industry in American life, which is our political system. You know, and our political system, I've had the great fortune or misfortune of of getting to a point where I realized that the solutions I'm chasing require a functional government. And so now I'm like, okay, how do I make the government functional? And I'm only in year 5 or 6 of this particular arc. You know, you all remember seeing me in the debates 4 years ago. It's like, who's the Asian guy next to Joe Biden? And then you Googled Asian guy next to Joe Biden, and then it's like, oh, Andrew Yang, that's different. So I'm still relatively fresh to this industry, but we have massive opportunities because more and more Americans are waking up to the fact that these systems do not exist to serve us. They exist for some other purpose.
Amazing. Andrew Yang, thank you for your time, for your work.
Thank you, Sherrell. Thank you, Birmingham.
Yes,
you guys are awesome.
absolutely,
I appreciate
everyone.
the heck
Thank
out of
you.
you. Magic City, indeed.